Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Got a lot to discuss today. I think, in particular, will be more about attackers than defenders today. So, no other place to start. But the big talking point in the last few days is regarding the potential bid for Alexander Isak. Now, the latest that we're getting in regards to the Newcastle striker is that Liverpool are ready to break the bank for Alexander Isak. The possibility of his transfer, according to Fabrizio Romano, is 60% at the moment because there's a lot of work to do. But Isak is not opening the door for any other teams. So it looks like Liverpool is his dream move, and that is his sole focus. And that's something he would like to try and get done before the end of this window. And also, it's been confirmed that he's not going to join up with the Newcastle squad anytime this week. So it looks like he's waiting for Liverpool to make that official approach. Now, the big question is, will that happen? I think it will happen, but it all depends on Newcastle in terms of their stance. Unless Liverpool aren't given any sort of clear indication that they're willing to do business, then I don't think Liverpool will place an official bid. And the longer Newcastle drag this out, I actually feel like it doesn't impact their summer signings because they will have less time to strengthen their squad. Now, currently, they're struggling to get deals over the line. They've had the likes of João Pedro and Bruno Ekitike, just to name a few, that have already rejected moves to Newcastle. And it's also very clear that Isak is unsettled and wants to leave the club. So why delay the situation and why keep a player at the club when they're no longer interested in playing for the team going forward? Vice captain Kieran Trippier has been suggesting that Isak is genuinely injured with a thigh injury and that they're not panicking as a collective. Well, I can't believe there's any truth to those comments whatsoever. They are certainly panicking internally because this is one of their best players in the squad. This is a player that is a difference maker in the Premier League and will also have a positive effect in their team next season if they were to challenge for any major honours. So, also from what I know, Newcastle don't actually have a sporting director at the club. So it looks like Eddie Howe is doing a few jobs at once right now, and he's certainly being worked overtime. Let's be honest, he could probably do some extra funds in order to get the players that he wants this summer. Newcastle have also told Red Bull Leipzig that they are ready to bid over £60 million for Benjamin Sesko, and that's the player that they've earmarked as Isak's replacement. Um, but they're waiting to see whether the striker will agree personal terms. So that's another stumbling block. They might not have the finances to get those type of players, and also I think what Newcastle trying to they'll try and find Isak's replacement before he walks through the door because they need to add more players into their squad, and they need to try and appease the Newcastle fans to an extent where, if he was the first one to leave the club, as in Isak, and there hasn't been a replacement brought through, it will be panic central at Newcastle. So they will probably want to try at least sign one or two players, whether it's a Wissa or a Sesko or whatever the caliber player they're after. They will need to try and get a player over the line. Now, from a Newcastle point of view, if they drag it out and they don't allow Isak to move to Liverpool this summer, I actually think it's a big L for Newcastle. Liverpool, on the other hand, not to sound cheeky or anything, I think we'll be fine. We've already signed a quality striker in Ekitike who will definitely have the capability to lead the line. The Isak signing is always, in my mind, regarded as the dream signing, and if it happens, it's pretty much a bonus for us at this stage. I'm sure everyone saw the training footage that was released on social media of Ekitike's finishing. For me, he's already an upgrade on what we have in the squad, and it looks like a potent finisher. The key for him will be to make sure he's consistent and whenever called upon, um, is able to score the goals at the highest level. The focus for Liverpool right now, for me, is actually to find a replacement for Luis Díaz. We all know the story. He is pretty much on the verge of signing for Bayern Munich. So I think Liverpool will need to focus on finding a replacement, but also do some negotiating or some official sort of talks in regards to signing Isak as well. I believe that in terms of the outcome of this window, Liverpool will sign Isak. That's my prediction, and I think we'll sign one more attacker. So it'll be a Luis Díaz replacement inside the squad. I've mentioned a couple of times in the last few days that we can't also rule out Ekatiga playing as a left-sided forward in the team. I don't think that would be his number one role, but I do feel like he has the capabilities of playing in that position. But rest assured, his primary position will be striker. Um, so I feel like Liverpool need to make sure that they can sign an actual winger or a wide forward, however you want to label it, to come into the team, especially as there's could be some departures in the attacking line for Liverpool. So let's see what happens in regards to Isak. Hopefully, we'll get some further developments. I feel like we'll get some sort of approach officially presented for Isak because he's clearly waiting for Liverpool to do something, and we're just waiting for the green light from Newcastle to suggest that they're open to talk business. So hopefully that time will come in the next few days. Just got a comment here from Kieran. So good evening. Big up, Kieran. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's move on to the next rumor, and that is Rodrygo. Now he's definitely regarded as one of our primary targets to replace Luis Diaz. The link pretty much fizzled out in the last few days, but there has been some sort of developments in the last 24 hours. Apparently, Tottenham have registered an interest in signing the player today, but it was quickly dismissed from Rodrigo's camp as they've suggested that he will only leave Real Madrid for a big club. So that also rules out Arsenal in the running. What's a little dig there? But according to Spanish journalist Roman Alvarez, he's said that Rodrigo's preference is Liverpool if he decides to leave Real Madrid this summer. So my thoughts on the rumor in terms of Liverpool being his preferred destination, I should say. It's interesting. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not getting that same feeling I'm getting for Isak. I feel like Isak's um, going to be a Liverpool player this summer. The Rodrigo one, I'm still a bit unclear of. Maybe because we've not heard much from Rodrigo's camp, or we're hearing that he prefers to move to Liverpool, but does he really? I'm not entirely sure. So only time will tell if that is going to be a realistic target for Liverpool. Financially, I don't feel like it's going to be a deal that breaks the bank as such. The transfer fee will be around 70 to 75 million pounds, which is just slightly above what we're going to receive for Luis Diaz, but pretty much in the same range. And in terms of salary, yeah, that's going to be a big talking point, of course, because if we were to sign Isak and Rodrigo, Isak will probably earn about 250, 300K, and I think Rodrigo will want something along those same lines as well. So we're spending a half a million a week for two new players. But I do believe Liverpool have the finances to accommodate those two players. So you never know. At this stage, you can't rule anything out because the way Liverpool are moving right now, they're full of surprises, and hopefully, we'll get some clear indication if Rodrigo is a realistic target. But if Liverpool, for some reason, aren't able to get that deal over the line or the move doesn't materialize, today apparently there's been a few names branded around as potential alternatives for Rodrigo. One of those players is Antonio Nusa. Now, he's a very interesting player. If you haven't seen him in action already, the highly rated Norwegian winger was very close to moving to Brentford a couple of years ago, but unfortunately failed a medical and that move collapsed. But he's definitely showcased his talent for Red Bull Leipzig, and it looks like a move away from the German side could be on the cards. Now, my thoughts on Nusa as a potential signing for Liverpool. If you haven't seen him in action, do check him out because I feel like he's a very, very exciting player. Only 20 years of age. Um, he has been linked to Liverpool in the past, actually. We were linked to him when he was at Club Brugge. That's where he pretty much made his name, and then I think this was last year, maybe even 2 years ago as well. So that move never materialized, and then he ended up moving over to Red Bull Leipzig. So he's clearly a player that's on our logbook when it comes to scouting and using data metrics in terms of identifying potential targets. So a player definitely liked by our recruitment team. Um, Apparently he's available for £31 million, which is pretty much peanuts in this day and age. And if we're selling Luis Diaz, where we're attaining 65 million, you know, we're basically gaining 34 extra million, and we could probably use that on another player, or we can use it, as part of the Isak budget, and then we'll have the funds to use it on another player within the squad. So for me, it actually wouldn't be a bad signing. I feel like he's got, great ability, great potential. I don't think he's lived up to that bill yet. I think he's still got room to grow and develop. He's only 20 years of age, so plenty of time to excel in the future. Only concern would be his injuries, where the move that unfortunately collapsed for him for Brentford, it was due to a knee injury and a back injury. So I think he's got some sort of history with regards to having knee injuries and a back injury. So that would be a slight concern. But of course, that's down to the medical team to assess the player and make sure he's fully fit and not regarded as an injury prone player, going forward. So it's going to be interesting because in terms of how he plays, he's predominantly a left winger, but likes to cut in and be an inside forward at times. If I had to give a comparison, he kind of reminds me of Desiree from PSG. They've got a very similar style of play. I would say Nusa is a little bit quicker, but I feel like in terms of dribbling, that they're very like for like. So that's the kind of profile I would, identify Nusa as, that type of player. So it wouldn't be a bad signing. Now, some fans will make arguments and say, look, why are we signing a player that would only predominantly be a left winger? Because it could hamper or deter the progress of a Rio and Gamora, who's making waves in our youth academy or youth ranks, as well as, in preseason right now. My thinking has always been that, it's all good on having these young players with huge potential coming through. But end of the day, Liverpool have to look out for themselves, and we have to have the strongest squad available to compete for all titles. I don't want to be in that sort of mind frame where you don't want to sign a player because it might hamper someone's progress. If that player is going to fulfill his potential or his ability, then he will overtake those players eventually, in my opinion. So I don't think that should be the way we think. We should try and strengthen for now, and of course for the short term and long term. But no player is always going to stay at your club forever. So it would be worth looking for a player to come into a club. We're potentially going to lose a couple of more attackers in our team. So therefore, we can't just rely on a 16/17-year-old to come into the first team fold. We need to sign a player that's ready to make an impression to the team right now. So that would be my viewpoint. So I would feel like, Nusa would be a great profile for us. 31 million, very, easy to attain in my opinion. So hopefully we can get a deal done. We've got a good relationship with Red Bull Leipzig, so hopefully that could play a part. Jurgen Klopp, of course, is at the top as well, so hopefully he can give us some mate rates as well. So hopefully, there's some sort of, you know, value or some sort of weight to the rumor. Because I do rate the player. It's just that I think injuries might, be a factor in terms of why we're not pursuing, because he's got a bit of an injury record. So let's see what happens. Just got a comment here from Uncle Ross TV. Says, big up, bro. Big up, Uncle Ross, as always. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. And guys, please make sure to subscribe to Uncle Ross's channel. Chris says, I don't think Nusa is at the level to start for us. No, he wouldn't be a start for me. He would be the backup player for Gakpo. So for me, Gakpo would be the starter. And then you'll have Nusa. And then depending on who we play, Ekitike could also be regarded as a left side option. So he wouldn't be a star, that's for sure. I think it would be Gakpo, and then you have Nusa challenging for that role. I have seen him Nusa play on the right wing at times. Doesn't look the most comfortable there. I don't think he's as impactful, but if we need him, to cover Mohamed Salah, or if we need him to play a few games there, I think he's got that in his locker to do that as well. So So yeah, not a starter, but definitely a player to add to our squad. Another potential target, which no um, alarm bells here. It's a player that we've been linked with for quite some time, and that is Malick Fofana. Now, in terms of his profile, he's a player with great speed on the flanks, and he likes to attack from behind. And I think he could be also a good option for the squad. He's capable of playing as a left winger. That is his primary position, but can also play right wing as well. The difference between him and Nusa, he'd cost a little bit more apparently. I didn't realize, he's got a higher price tag, but the price tag that's rumored is £43 million, which yeah, it's a little bit high because I thought he would have been available for about 2025. That was the rumors about a month ago with Lyon's, current financial situation. But seems like they've bumped the price then maybe because the players gathering a lot of interest right now. And one of the clubs is actually Everton. They've been linked with a move for the Belgian winger. So the question is, could Liverpool hijack that deal if there's any sort of real truth to Everton potentially signing the player, or is it clear that he's one of many targets but not regarded as a top target? I think it's the latter. I don't think he's regarded as a top target. Um, I think it comes down to the whole package. If he's available for 43 million, that's something the club will have to think about because in terms of his numbers, his numbers weren't very high last season. I think he had 6 goals. I think he had 6 goals and 3 assists, if my memory is correct. So didn't have the best of stats in terms of high GA. Um, for me, still looks a bit raw. He was pretty much signed as a sort of a signing for the future a couple of years ago for £15 million, and he's still within that bracket. I don't think he's surpassed that label anymore. I think he's still a player with potential. So for me, he's got the raw ability to become a top player. Um, but whether he's ready for a move to Liverpool, I think he'd be a good squad player. I think he's a player that will give us a pace and width on the flanks, but he wouldn't be a starter, and I don't think he will be close to being a starter anytime soon. He could be, regarded as a replacement for Chiesa. That was the story looming around last week. So if you look at it in that perspective, then you've got a player that adds pace and can definitely add a different dynamic to our team. But the price tag, we'll probably end up selling Chiesa for about 15 million to get Malick Fofana for 43. And for me, doesn't really have, a consistent end product. That would be a little bit too high in my opinion. Whereas Nusa, his stats are a little bit better, but he's valued at a little bit less. And I feel like he's got a higher ceiling if I was to make a comparison between the two. So Nusa would be my favorite one right now, but both players definitely, fit the profile in terms of being versatile forwards that are quick and dynamic. So hopefully, we'll get some sort of development. Because right now the Rodrygo deal is a bit up in the air. I'm not sure if there's any sort of truth to his reported preference that he would like to join Liverpool, but we'll soon find out very, very shortly, I guess. Next player that has also been linked with a move to Liverpool is Kenan Yildiz. Now, the highly rated Turkish winger has been linked to a move before at Liverpool. And with Diaz set to leave, there's no surprise that the links have reappeared for the exciting player. My thoughts on him being a potential target, I really rate him. He's a fantastic player, really talented, quick on the ball, great acceleration. But what impresses me the most about Kenan Yildiz is his eye for pass and his end product. Very, very good in terms of providing through balls to the attackers. And he's got a great shot on him as well. He can cut in from the left hand side, shoot from distance, and has a great finish on him. So for me, he would be a great signing for the club. I think he would fit the bill as a replacement for Luis Díaz. However, I very much doubt Juventus will want to part ways with someone that's probably regarded as their star boy right now because there's not a lot of players that are shining at the Italian side, and he seems to be the one that is, that someone that is very highly regarded amongst the fan base. So for me, if he's available, I think Liverpool should definitely be in for him. But I do also believe if Juventus, wanting to do any business, they'll probably put a hefty price tag on him. It'll probably be around 60, 70 million. So Will Liverpool want to match that kind of offer? I'm not too sure, but he's a player that is definitely one to watch because I feel like in years to come he can definitely, light up the Serie A league, but also may potentially move away and make a name for himself. So one to watch. I just don't think he's a realistic option for Liverpool, and I don't think Juventus will sell him this summer. And speaking of Italian players, the next one is Chiesa. Now, even after Luis Díaz's sale, the plan remains that Chiesa will leave Liverpool as he wants more game time, and I think he's been informed that he will have very limited opportunities at Liverpool next season. So it looks like Serie A is his sort of destined um, destination, I guess, this summer. The teams that have been linked to him is Como and his former club in Fiorentina. But the front runner right now, it seems to be Atlanta. They've shown quite a bit of interest in the last couple of weeks. So my thoughts on his potential departure. It's a bit of a shame. I'm not going to lie because I really rate the player. I've watched him over the years as a Juventus player when he was in prime form and for the Italian team as well. Really, really talented player. Unfortunately, the injuries have taken its toll, and he's not as dynamic as he used to be. He's slowed down in terms of his burst of speed, but in terms of what he possesses, technically, he still is a good player. So I feel like maybe he deserved to have another season at Liverpool. Whether it's as a squad player or challenging for a first team player, I feel like he deserved to have one more opportunity at the club. But I think the evidence of last season, especially in the second half, it was quite clear that Arne Slot didn't really favour the player, didn't really utilise him as much. So therefore, maybe the writing's been on the wall that he is, set to leave Liverpool. And of course, with the World Cup happening next summer, his ambition will be to try and play for a team where he gets first team opportunities and also stake a claim to be selected for the Italian national team. So let's see, if Chiesa ends up leaving Liverpool. I think it's very, very likely that he will. And I definitely see him, moving over to Serie. Now, in terms of the transfer fee, I hope we get at least 15 million. That's the minimum that I think the Liverpool should accept, and that would be regarded as a bit of profit from what we spent last year. But I do feel like he's a player that when he goes to Syria, he can definitely play to his level because he might have lost a bit of his speed, but in the Italian league, it's his comfort zone. He knows the style and the traits of Italian football, so he'll settle it very quickly. Now, in terms of the teams that are linked, Atalanta, I think, will be the most likely team. I think Lookman might be on the verge of leaving, and he's possibly joining Inter Milan. So maybe they've earmarked Chiesa as his replacement, which makes perfect sense. So yeah, unfortunately, I think he will end up leaving um, this summer. But yeah, if he does, I do wish him the best because he's a player I do rate. Yeah, it would be such a shame to see him leave. Just got a couple of comments here from Kieran. Kieran says, I really like your Diz. I would definitely take him. Highly doubt he will be available though. I agree. I rate him as well. I just don't think he's available. When the team plays Juventus, it's your Diz that they fear. Loves to run at the defender. He's only 20, so we can mold him into more of a goal scorer. I think so. I think he has the ability of being a goal scorer. He does score a decent number of goals, but I feel like playing for Juventus, he's regarded as the go-to guy to create havoc or cause havoc, I should say, and be the guy that scores the goals and provides it. So there's a lot of weight and pressure on his shoulders right now, but he's definitely a player that I feel like could really um, light up Europe at some point where he's got so much potential. And if he was to join a club like Liverpool, I feel like he could definitely end up becoming one of our first choice left wingers. That's how much ability I believe that the guy has. So yeah, let's see. If there's any truth to rumor, I'd be very surprised because that's their prize asset right now. But you never know. Crazy things have happened in football. Kieran says, I remember watching Inter Milan versus Juventus last season, and Juventus were 4-2 and then Yildiz came off the bench and scored 2 goals, finished 4-4. So yeah, so even though he didn't start, he was impactful off the bench, and that's what you want from your player. So even at Liverpool, he won't be a starter every game, but if he's not, you're expecting him to come on and make an impression. So that's the kind of player you want. So for me, I think he would be the perfect profile to come into the club because, like you said, he's 20 years of age, but he's very, very, highly regarded at that age, and he's accomplished. He's been playing for Juventus for quite some time, so he's very experienced for a 20-year-old, if that makes sense. So for me, he's at that level where if he was to move to Liverpool, I think he can achieve that next level very, very quickly. So would be a good signing for us, whether it happens or not. Only remains to be seen, but we'll see if there is any truth to the rumor. And the final one for today is Darwin Núñez. Now, he has gathered some interest once again, and it's from Serie A, ironically. So he's been linked with a move again to AC Milan and Juventus. But there's also Saudi teams that are, registering interest in the striker. You've got Al Hilal, which we all know about, Al Nassr, and now we've got a new team in the mix in Al Ahli. They are also interested in signing Darwin Núñez. So the big question is, which club is going to get the ball rolling with the opening bid? Because we're always hearing there's interest in Darwin Núñez, but no one's placing an official offer. I'm probably hoping that it's one of the Saudi teams because we'll be able to muster, a bigger transfer out of those deals. Whereas Syria, the AC Milan or Juventus, they would either want to explore a loan deal with an obligation to buy, or they'd offer us a bit of a lesser fee, which at this stage for me is not really an option. But only time will tell because there's two prices for Darwin. For Saudi, I think we'll want around 70 odd million. I think within Europe, it will be 50 million. I think we'll be happy with that kind of bid. Now, whether Juventus or Milan are willing to spend that kind of money, I don't see it. They don't tend to spend that big. With Napoli, they had the finances because of the sale of Kvaratskhelia in January. So they had the finances to make a big signing like that. But yeah, in the end, they've gone for another striker in Lucas. So they aren't in the market for that type of player anymore. So let's see what happens to Darwin. I don't think he'll be at the club this summer, and I think he will eventually get his move. But right now it's very, very unclear in terms of where that destination could be. But hopefully, we'll get some clarity with Ekitike walking through the door now. Diaz leaving, hopefully, Nunes is the next one in line, and then we can try and get the Isak deal. But of course, sign another wide forward as well. So let's see. Exciting times, I guess. Looking forward to potential targets uh, in the coming weeks. So hopefully we'll get some new developments. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Kieran and thank you to Uncle Roz as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming content, I will be doing another transfer show tomorrow. Of course, it'll be interesting to see what the discussion is tomorrow because we'll wait on any developments. Hopefully, we'll get some groundbreaking news and we'll have a lot to discuss. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. Also, I have a membership available as well now. So if you'd like to join the FTP membership, you'll be inclined to receiving exclusive content on my part. Plus, you'll have opportunities to take part in exclusive polls and just exclusive perks as a member. So definitely one to look out for. Just got a final comment here from Kieran. Says thanks, Ozzy. See you next stream. Good night. Big up yourself, Kieran. Thank you for tuning as always. And that is it for today, guys. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak to you all very, very soon. Goodbye.